every year going bankrupt because of medical bills, 30,000 people dying while the healthcare industry makes tens of billions of dollars in profit. 5 minutes away from here, John, is a country. It's called Canada. They guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child as a human right. They spend...
I actually heard that 45,000 Americans die every year from lack of having health care. So you might say, I don't even know what the fucking argument is. It's life. And so if you're opposed to it, then essentially you're saying it's okay that people die even though there's plenty. And so I think it's the opposite. 45,000 people die every year. That's upon the state. The state, the people that die without adequate health care should sue the state because the state didn't do their duty. They didn't give a shit about the life, the health of their people.
We're not going to solve the urgent problems that we face with small ideas and spinelessness. We're going to solve them by being the Democratic Party of big structural change.
Bernie is right. He's right on a ton of fucking things. So, hey, John Delaney, just go north, a little bit of ways, you'll run into a country. And it's called Canada. John Delaney. What? John Delaney doesn't, he's not going to talk about UBI or instant runoff voting. We didn't talk about the war, Edward Snowden, the poverty. We hardly touched on a whole bunch of issues. But the overall debate, the third debate, I'm just going to count them in order. That's easier instead of being like the second of the first of the third. No, this is the third Democrat debate.
Form our economy and our government.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Let's start the debate with the number one issue for Democratic voters, health care. And Senator Sanders, let's start with you. You support Medicare for all, which would eventually take private health insurance away from more than 150 million.
The one in Detroit. So the Detroit debate, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and I would say Mayor Pete Buttigieg and Marianne Williamson. Those are the four main winners of that night. Somebody had this awesome metaphor, and essentially the way the whole night went, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren fought side by side in defense of Medicare for all, to get rid of the private insurance industry, to wipe out all those private companies, Humana and Aetna and Fruit of the Loom and whatever, Blue Cross and Blue Shield. But John Delaney, he loves their damn premiums and the co-pays and the deductibles, and he's saying, damn it, I'm not going to make my millions off the Americans, Bernie. You're fucking up my business here. God, I've been sucking the Americans dry for decades.
Government expansions. Now, some will promise a bill tonight or a plan for tonight. What we focused on was making sure that we got people together to get things done, to provide solutions to problems, to make sure that we worked together and created jobs. That's how we're going to beat Donald Trump. That's how we're going to win Michigan and the country.
It's actually how he made his wealth. So John Delaney is Mr. Health, private health industry fucking guy. He self-financed $7 million to put himself in. He's an ex-congressman. He's nobody. He's just some rich asshole, don't have shit to do. He's like Schultz. Was it Howard Schultz, that rich asshole? He was running for president for like a week. And then he just, then you didn't hear him. He's just a rich asshole. He's got nothing else better to do. So Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren had to fight. They're saying it's the liberals versus the moderates, but Bernie Sanders is an Eisenhower Republican. Look at his policies. He's an Eisenhower Republican. When it comes to the taxes, a 90% marginal tax rate on major corporations and the wealthy, over 50 million people. This is people making over $50 million. This is Eisenhower, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Republican. So Bernie is the centrist, and he's standing up for what's right, and these assholes are trying to triangulate, trying to, find where the middle is, when Bernie's right on the middle. Bernie is right on the pulse of the American people. So they're trying to triangulate. They're trying to triangulate by, going to the right of him. That'd be your right? So they're trying to triangulate by going to the right. Even Elizabeth Warren's doing that, saying she's a capitalist. So you got the very liberal, progressive capitalist, or you got the socialist who's, like Eisenhower, the Republican Eisenhower socialist, or you got the capitalist progressive.
I will work my heart out to beat Donald Trump and to elect a Democratic Congress. But our problems didn't start with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is part of a corrupt, rigged system that has helped the wealthy and the well-connected and kicked dirt in the faces of everyone else.
So the imagery was that in a Kung Fu movie, you have, Gene Kugard mentioned this, he got it from somebody else, but in a Kung Fu movie, you have the two main stars surrounded by all the bad guys, and then the two main stars back-to-back have to fight it out. They got to attack each and every one, and then eventually, they are victorious. So the two champions, this was Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. These are the two big main headliners. They were the first two that was called out. And so people expected them to have, some words, to have some exchange to differentiate the difference between their policies, but they didn't hardly criticize each other whatsoever. In fact, they came to each other's defense. And so it was actually amazing because, she's a strong progressive, so I think it's cool that Elizabeth Warren is helping to mainstream Bernie Sanders. So whereas criticizing the police and speaking Spanish has become normalized because of that first debate, I think Bernie Sanders, Medicaid for all, socialism, I think all these things were the biggest victory for last night, July 30th. There's going to be something going on here in 15 minutes.
Prices ending.
Thank you, Governor Bullock. I want to bring in Mayor Buttigieg on the topic of whether or not the middle class should pay higher taxes in exchange for guaranteed health care and the elimination of insurance premiums. How do you respond, Mayor?
So we don't have to stand up here speculating about whether the public option will be better than, or a Medicare for all environment will be better than the corporate options. We can put it to the test. That's the concept of my Medicare for all who want it proposal.
So overall, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren kicked ass. They kicked all the conservative right-wing Democrats, all the capitalist Democrats' ass, everybody to the right of Elizabeth. When it comes to their brand of capitalism, like Kung Fu fighters, and they beat all the enemies. They, kicked everybody's ass. So that was awesome. They did not talk too much about war and peace. They talked briefly about the Afghanistan war. Somebody criticized UBI, but we never dwelled into ending the war on drugs. There's just so many issues. We take way too much time talking about health care.
Senator Bernie Sanders.
Tonight in America, as we speak, 87 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured. But the healthcare industry made $100 billion in profits last year.
So that was the victor, right? Bernie Sanders, he's normalized now. That's Uncle Bernie. That's no matter what, he's made history. 8 million people or so watched last night. People say that Donald gets 22 million for his stories. So Donald Trump is still more popular, but once the Democrats, get behind one candidate, I think that'll be really, the Democrats will be able to do a lot of great things. Be able to, kind of manhandle Trump, for the next year.
America will be redeemed. In the face of cruelty and fear from a lawless president, we will choose to be the nation that stands up for the human rights of everyone, for the rule of law for everyone, and a democracy that serves everyone.
So Marianne Williamson, she was awesome. She is crucial. She is essential. We need her in the debates because as an office, she's an outside voice. And so, she's a Democrat, but she's sitting there saying, Democrats, we need to care about the poor and the downtrodden and all the, the hungry and what are we doing? That's what the Democrats are supposed to be doing. And so the American people really need a healthy dose of Marianne Williamson's insanity. And she is just delighted about it, right? You can tell, you love me, you really love me.
Governor Bullock, I want to bring you in. You do not support Medicare for all. How do you respond to Senator Warren?
No, health care is so personal to all of us. Never forget when my 12-year-old son had a heart attack within 24 hours of his life. Had to be life-flighted to Salt Lake City. But because we had good insurance, he's here with me tonight.
Warren, the Democrats, that there's going to be dark days ahead if the Democrats don't get their shit together. So she's essentially saying everything that needs to be said. So you got to have a bold progressive, not a Republican light, a bold progressive that actually runs. That's what you got to have. You have to have that. You want to have a chance in hell? Don't go for Joe Biden's and the neoliberals of the fucking world. you got to go for the Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris's. And Bernie Sanders is the most progressive, but he's an Eisenhower Republican, so some people can, shuffle left on. Tulsi is left on Bernie on Venezuela.
I'm running for president because our country is running out of time. It is even bigger than the emergency of the Trump presidency. Ask yourself how somebody like Donald Trump ever gets within cheating distance of the Oval Office in the first place.
So we need a healthy dose of Marianne Williamson's insanity. She said something about being anti-plan. She was pretty serious about it, so it seems like she was just saying these other candidates have plans. She did talk about having some plan, so I hope she's getting better on that, because how are you going to get any of this accomplished? Just wing it? You have no fucking plan whatsoever. Just go in and wing it. I don't like that at all, because we can't hold you to your feet to the fire and say, hey, you promised us this and that, and then we never get it. So we need a plan. They talked about getting a reparations commission. That's how the reparations is going to begin. You got to start a commission. But she was like, no, we don't just need a commission. We just need to give them money. And, I understand her enthusiasm, but it doesn't seem like she's more interested in motivating than governing.
At the end of the day, I'm not going to support any plan that rips away quality health care from individuals. This is an example of wish list economics. It used to be just Republicans who wanted to repeal and replace. Now many Democrats do as well. We can get there with a public option, negotiating drugs.
But she's fun. She's awesome. This contraband of imperialist foreign policy captivated cult, catapulted, swiveled in case gargled, garlic, gargamel. The days of Ricky Tikki Tavi, the honorable and good, decent mongoose are no more. It's nothing but snakes, cobras, vultures, and predators everywhere. So America, girlfriend, just shout it on out. Shout, shout, let it all out. These are the things that I could do without. We're going to get reparations, but we're not going to have a plan for reparations, but we're going to have a good motto. And Donald Trump, sir, love will win. So that was fun. That was fun for me. So, I'm sure it's fun being Marianne Williamson.
Right now, we have a dysfunctional healthcare system, 87 million uninsured or underinsured, $500,000 Americans.
I don't think she has a chance, but I think her point is essentially the status quo, the conventions, the way that things have been operating, everything. The whole game is rigged. So we got to change the campaigns, change the systems, change the whole nation, change the Democrats, change ourselves, change how we interact with each other. So she's calling for, massive change, and she was actually opposed to Medicare for all. She answered awful when it comes to Medicare for all.
At this moment of truth, let us pursue our national promise and make a more perfect union of everyone, by everyone, and for everyone.
Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
So Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are doing kung fu fighting, through the first 30 minutes of the debate. But Marianne Williamson, she went ahead and joined with, the conservatives. Well, they got a point. I hear them too. So, yeah, okay. I kind of hear them, but their overall message isn't going to, you're supposed to inspire people. And then later on she goes, I can't even believe some of you are Democrats. Marianne Williamson, you weren't a Democrat in the very beginning with Medicare for all. So I'm glad she, slowly evolved into a Democrat, and, she might get her shit together too. Marianne Williamson, you need to get your shit together. You need a plan. You need to get some plans. But her voice is, I'm glad she's in the debate. She offers a unique perspective, and her overall point of us being better, having a spiritual awakening. I've always felt we needed a renaissance and enlightenment.
We need to be the party that fights for our democracy and our economy to work for everyone. I know what's broken in this country. I know how to fix it, and I will fight to make it happen.
So she's, all her rhetoric is pretty close. She's mentioned foreign policy blunders in Central America. She seems to like Israel a little bit too much. She says America's number one, Israel's number two. I think Israel to me is like about number 50 in, in terms of the most important countries of the world. Bolivia, come on, that's the death place of Che Guevara. That's where you got a socialist president. They elected a socialist president in Bolivia. So that's a pretty important nation. That would be my number 2. America number 1, Bolivia number 2, and, we could argue about the rest.
This is our shot. That is why I'm running for president.
Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Donald Trump disgraces the office of president every single day. And anyone on this stage tonight or tomorrow night would be a far better president. I promise no matter who our candidate is.
So Bernie Sanders is a moderate. He's an Eisenhower Republican. So this whole moderate versus liberal, I don't like how they're painting essentially them up as being off the charts. But if that's what the people want, then that would be a good thing because they're actually, Republican Eisenhower centrist. But if they assume they're off the charts, then we could get, we can make them as far left and progressive as we could possibly make them. And that's because of the fucking Republicans being scared of, oh no, socialism, oh no. They do not know what to fucking do with themselves. The Republicans are just shitting their pants and they can't, admit it. So Donald Trump ad, I watched the Young Turks breakdown of the Democratic debate. There was a Donald Trump advertisements on YouTube. So Donald Trump's always, or not always, but has already.
Million Americans in exchange for government-sponsored health care for everyone. Congressman Delaney just referred to it as bad policy, and previously he has called the idea political suicide that will just get President Trump reelected. What do you say to Congressman Delaney?
You're wrong.
Began to spend money on his re-election campaign, or maybe it's a dark PAC and dark money by George Soros and the Bilderberg, the Rothschilds. He's probably being financed by the Rothschilds, but we can't find those PACs because they don't have to disclose who's actually putting money behind it. Regardless, Donald Trump said he approved the message at the very end. So Donald had claimed that Democrats love illegal immigrants more than Americans, and that was just such fucking horse shit. That's not true. So while they're saying illegal immigrants can get on the health care, so if they come to the country and they're sick, we should take care of them. And, I got some issues with that. If we had got a public health care system, that means if it's a buy-in program, that means we would have just a smaller pool of people, and then the immigrant crowd is just going to hit the public option. Nah, we got to have Medicare for all. So we're going to get Medicare for all with Bernie Sanders. That's his one main big idea. And, he's got the Republican Senate, and he's going to have to, get it through Congress. So that's his one big idea. But he's got a whole bunch of ideas, right? So Donald claims that Democrats love illegal immigrants. So Democrats want to get health care for all Americans. Some illegal immigrants, but definitely all Americans, not immigrants over Americans. So immigrants in addition to all Americans. Donald also in the ad said that all the Democrats are socialist. There's only one socialist out of the 25, and everybody else is running to the right of Bernie. Even Elizabeth Warren calls herself a capitalist. She literally says, I'm a capitalist, did a standing ovation for Donald Trump and when he was shitting on socialism, even though we're, fucking with Venezuela, spending, trillions of dollars, how much money we're going to spend for, destabilizing Venezuela in this new Cold War.
And it's bad policy.
Senator Sanders,
My name was also mentioned in this.
We're going to come to you in 1 second, but let me go to Senator Sanders right now. Senator Sanders?
The fact of the matter is, tens of millions of people lose their health insurance every single year when they change jobs, when their employer changes that insurance.
It's aggressive. We're stealing their oil refineries, their gold. We're shutting down their electric grids. We are fucking with them hardcore.
Congressman Beto O'Rourke.
I'm running for president because I believe that America discovers its greatness at its moments of greatest need. This moment will define us forever. And I believe that in this test,
we chose just some guy in the crowd. Hey, you want to be president? Who wants to be president? Some guy raised their hand, and then America said, okay, you're the new president now. And then the president in Venezuela was like, what the fuck are you smoking? Right? Venezuela tried to do the same shit. Right? Venezuela looked at Dennis Rodman, one of our biggest diplomats for North Korea, and said that he's the new president. So if, America could just point to another country and point to some guy and declare him to be president.
I come from a state where a lot of people voted for Donald Trump.
That means Venezuela could do the same shit to us. And if you're like, wait a second, that's not fair. Yeah, that's my fucking point.
Seem more concerned about scoring points or outdoing each other with wish list economics.
So Elizabeth Warren would be, the only one that would be socialistic, that's progressive and liberal, and she's to the left, but she calls herself a capitalist. So if Donald Trump and Fox News and all of them are just saying socialist, oh my God, they're all socialist. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. There's only one socialist, and he's a Democrat, a democratic socialist, which is his own brand of socialism. Elizabeth Warren, none of them embrace socialism, even as a mixed economic system. They don't even embrace socialism as the current system with Social Security, public libraries, roads, police, fire, EMS. No, we're not going to acknowledge any of the government services. None of it's Social Security. Is that socialism? Social Security? Giving old people free money for doing nothing all they worked, what, a fucking 100 years ago? It's not, it's not like a savings account. So wealth redistribution program, the working class people pay those taxes so the old people and the disabled can, retire comfortably, and they don't have to worry about the shit the rest of us have to worry about. But Jesus Christ, tired of people being on government health care, being against government health care. I'm tired of people being on the dole and, being against welfare or food stamps. Oh, my God, I've heard in Kentucky, most of the people in Kentucky got food stamps, but if you ask them, none of them have food stamps. So it's like, what's really going on here? They hate themselves. They pretend they're not actually who they are. We're pretending we're not poor.
My dad, the union electrician, loved the health care he got from the IBEW. He would never want someone to take that away. Half of Medicare beneficiaries now have Medicare Advantage, which is private insurance, or supplemental plans. It's also bad policy. It'll underfund the industry. Many hospitals will close.
So, yeah, it's such a bullshit. The fact that Donald Trump is putting ads out, so that's already meaning he's, getting ready. He's nervous, so he's starting his campaign. And then also the criticisms are dumb as shit. Really, open borders, illegal immigrants. The Democrats hate you, America, and they love those immigrants. They hate you, though, America. And, sometimes I do get a sense with some of these neoliberals that is, what they want. But they're also saying they're for open borders. Marianne Williamson, she's for, she's for border security. So nobody's for open borders. Nobody's talking about loving illegal immigrants more than the American people. It's love all of Americans and all the American people, and in addition to all of America. So, and then he's calling everybody socialist. So, keep expecting that bullshit. Pete Buttigieg is actually, is absolutely right. They're going to sit there and hit him with socialist no matter what. So Elizabeth Warren says, hey, I'm a capitalist. And then Fox News and the Republicans and Donald Trump, they're like, so you say you're a capitalist, but you're a Democrat. I think you're socialist. And just like that, the capitalist, the person that calls herself capitalism, cheers for capitalism in front of Donald Trump. It had to be a good moment for Donald, right, to get Elizabeth Warren up out of her chair, giving a standing ovation. Fuck socialism. Fuck socialism. So the person that's saying fuck socialism is the person they're calling socialist. God, there are some dumb motherfuckers. They don't know what the fuck is going on, do they? Jesus Christ. And we're talking, we're taking way too much time on health care.
Clarification in 15 extra seconds. Would you raise taxes on the middle class to pay for Medicare for all, offset obviously by the elimination of insurance premiums? Yes or no? Costs
will go up for billionaires and go up for corporations. For middle class families, total costs will go down.
So ultimately, the moderates lost and the liberals won. But essentially, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren kicked ass. Marianne Williamson, she's pretty liberal, but she was opposed to Medicare for all. And then Pete Buttigieg, I think he had a pretty good night too. So essentially, as long as you watch the debates and you still are thinking about what they said and they're lingering in your mind as possible, that's essentially what I'm doing. That's how I'm sizing these assholes up. So John Hickenlooper, John Delaney, SB and TR Tim Ryan, and SB Steve Bullock, they needed to break through. They didn't. They're, right-wing capitalists, fucking conservative, fucking Democrat. They're in the wrong party. So really, if you're not a liberal or a progressive, then get the fuck out of the Democratic Party. Get the fuck out of the Democratic Party. If you're a right-wing, goddamn homophobic person, hates him, everything Donald Trump says, you just listen. Go fucking be a Republican. That's who you are. If you're a Joe Lieberman Democrat, if you're a Joe Biden Democrat, You should be, the centrist party, not fucking Democrats. We need an opposition party, an actual left opposition party, not a Republican light, not a right-wing business corporate party.
Sanders, Congressman Delaney.
Well, I'm right about this. We can create a universal health care system to give everyone basic health care for free, and I have a proposal to do it. But we don't have to go around and be the party of subtraction and telling half the country who has private health insurance that their health insurance is illegal.
So, yeah, Tim Ryan, Steve Bullock, John Delaney, John Hickenlooper. I heard that Delaney got, some money, but, fuck them. He's getting money from the health industry. They lost the Democratic nomination. They need to, win the American people over, and their messages are not exciting, and they're not going to be able to win in November with that fucking vision, their vision of we can't do shit. Well, we can't do that. Oh, we can't do that either. We can't do that. We can't do anything. So they're not really Democrats. They need to make major waves. They didn't. So, I think Jink is right that they've lost the Democratic nomination. So that's good. We found out we were able to weed out, half of them from the first debate. So let's see how many we're going to weed out for this fourth debate, the fourth debate for the Democrats. They got 8 million people, so, at least 8 million out of 320 million people are paying attention. At least 8 million gives a shit about the future of this country out of 320 million. I think The Bachelor's on, too, so I'm sure a lot of Americans are tuned into that bullshit.
And half of what we spend, and by the way, when you end up in a hospital in Canada, you come out with no bill at all. Healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. I believe that. I will fight for that.
Thank you, Senator.